All right. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to get started with the bombshell revelation that I literally found 10 minutes ago in the Epstein files. Now, if you are new to the channel, over the last 3 or 4 days, we've been doing all we can to go through the Epstein files. The Department of Justice has made it very, very difficult to search the files. You can't search, I'll explain all this when we get into it, but I'm going to need all of you IT pros out there, information technology pros out there that know about internet and cables out there to pay close attention so we can examine this email that seems to suggest that Trump and Epstein were literally fighting over internet access to have access to teen girls. Now, this is all redacted, but apparently there are some official seals here. And this is Detective Bureau, Child Exploitation, Human Trafficking. This is the FBI. So this is an email that somebody sent. And let me just go ahead and start reading it to you. This is unbelievable. We're going to pick up probably down here. It also includes a potential, well, let's start here. Was asked to write this up for oversight last week. Keep forgetting to pass it on to you. I'm sure y'all know about the bulk of it than I do, but if the hypothesis I pose is correct, should any discussion of corals, symbiodinium, algae, dinoflagellates arise linked to data encryption or Saudi Arabia, I might be able to fill in some gaps, dates, and other individuals who could have been involved in preventing funding from being provided to those whose interest in symbiosis was based solely on scientific merit. So this is obviously some kind of well-informed person, maybe someone that was giving them information, giving it like a consultant of some type to the FBI. But listen to what this person says next. It also includes a potential route for Epstein to have encountered James Damore and Kevin Carnegie, agent provocateurs who infiltrated Google and were believed to have been involved in the promotion of the Pizzagate narrative and the harassment and threats made against blank. I also have additional information, listen closely, and this is for the IT people, on Epstein's custom microwave communications setup. And this was on his island, that I obtained after the first draft of this document. I believe that one of the reasons for Epstein-Trump spat over the 515 County Road Palm Beach property that was eventually sold to Ryabolev might be over its proximity to the Columbus 2B fiber trunk line. So it's a fiber trunk line called the Columbus 2B. Now, obviously, this person is some kind of information technology person. He shows a map of this trunk line. Then he shows Epstein's Little St. James Island and its proximity to a trunk line. It says compare Epstein's proximity to both Columbus 2B and the U.S. I guess that's 6th Circuit below. Okay, so they're showing these trunk lines of the internet, and then he says, unfortunately, I also have reason to believe, given statements made by Ethan Zuckerman of the MIT Media Lab, that the Little Bits engineering kits that were largely targeted at preteen girls. So this is some kind of internet engineering kit targeted at preteen girls, were funded, at least in part, by Epstein in connection with Neoteny Labs. So Epstein funded internet connection for preteen girls. The individual I discussed before claimed to be besties with blank. It appears they received funding in 2011 when she was affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, that's not a crime per se, but I think there's something worth looking into in the event that any data about usage or users of the kits might have been acquired by Epstein in his efforts to screen potential members to join his herd at the ranch. So there you go. Then it talks about Epstein's desire to seed the planet with his offspring. Mr. Lanier, the virtual reality creator and author, said he had the impression that Mr. Epstein was using dinner parties where some guests were attractive women with impressive academic credentials to screen candidates to bear Mr. Epstein's children. Mr. Epstein had no secrets of his interest in tinkering with genes and in perpetuating his own DNA. And then the person replies, "My God, is that what you meant by girls?" Whoa. At this point, I really can't tell you who her actions are intended to benefit. We haven't spoken since his death. Also, it appears the blank case has recently been delisted on both the Waterbury Police Department and NCMEC sites. Wow. Actually lived about 20 minutes from Waterbury when I lived in Connecticut. What a trip, you guys. So that's what I wanted to start off with. Now, for you IT people, let's go in here. Let's see what's going on with this. Now, what does that sound like to you? Epstein appears to have funded this internet targeted at preteen girls and was probably spying on them and maybe had access to their cameras. Who knows what was going on? And this was possibly the reason why Trump and Epstein were fighting over that particular address, to be able to have access to these teen girls. Now, we're also going to cover Nancy Mace, Congresswoman in the Epstein files. Remember when Nancy Mace left the survivor hearing crying? This is Nancy Mace here, if you don't remember. And there was a survivor meeting in Congress where they were testifying. This was back in, I believe, November. She left very upset and crying. Well, guess what? Her name is in the Epstein files. You can't make this up. Now, I want to give the credit to this particular Facebook page, John Patrick. And we're going to look at these files that he has linked here. And the victim is Christine Constantino. She goes by the name Amaya. And she says that she is a lifelong victim of these rings involving Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Steve Bannon, James Bulger, Kevin Weeks, John Martorano, Clarence Thomas. Wow. Sasha, what was his name? Sasha, I forgot his last name, the victim. He mentioned Clarence Thomas as well. She lists Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Nancy Mace, Sheriff Grady Judd, Robert Murray, Janice Farnan, Andrew McCabe, Keith Shipley, Virginia Giuffre, Michael Franzese, and Sam Gravano. She accuses members of the FBI, CIA, and Winter Hill Gang, like James Bulger, of perpetuating and covering up rape, torture, and trafficking, claiming institutional corruption protects the abusers and silences her. Mace started crying and left the hearing when the victims were giving their testimony because she knew she was going to be outed. This is what the page says. Now we're going to try to break this down. This is crazy, you guys. Let's go to the files and read this woman's testimony. Now, we also have to hold out the possibility that this could possibly be some kind of, CIA op to muddy the waters. Nancy Mace was one of the people pushing to have the Epstein files released. Why would she want the files released if she knew she was going to be named in the files? Or maybe she didn't think she would be recognized. Or maybe she was a victim and threatened and blackmailed to do the things that she did. That's really hard to make sense of some of this. But we have to hold out the possibility that this file was possibly inserted to make her shut up. Now, let's read this. Now, this is the woman's testimony, Maya, and this is crazy. I read through some of it. Good morning. I wrote to you previously regarding Epstein. I really need help outside of Florida because these agents that have been terrorizing me and are corrupt, and I believe they are psychopaths. I'm living in a nightmare, and they have threatened my life. I'm a target of the very people who graped me. In 2021, I ended up in jail and didn't know why I was there. A Sheriff Grady Judd entrapment along with the FBI. Sheriff Grady Judd was at the church graping me as a child, and the CIA and FBI knew and did nothing to help me or my younger sister. The FBI knew I was, let's just put assaulted by Epstein when I was between the age of 10 and 12 years old, and they knew I was gang assaulted by Stephen Bannon and 9 other men while strapped down on a table at Epstein's. These men targeted me because they made reference of me being strapped down and assaulted as a child. This is my punishment for telling that I saw James Bulger and Kevin Weeks kidnap a child. So this goes on, and in here, she mentions Donald Trump as well. She says Trump didn't want her. He wasn't her cup of tea. Let's search this page for Trump. I am a target of Donald Trump. In 2014, a CIA agent tricked me into going to Epstein's in Palm Beach. He said I was going to a holiday party. I got there with him and was handed a drink, and I was drugged once again. He took me to a room and said, "Wait here, I'll be right back." And immediately the door was shut and locked by Klein and Jeffrey. Every time I tried to get out, they would back me into a room, and it was Ghislaine Maxwell who was really doing this. I was locked in a room to be a sex slave. At one point, Butler unlocked the door, and standing there was Donald Trump. I wasn't his cup of tea. He said to a man, "Make sure she drinks some of that so she forgets I was here." Wow. Then said to the butler, "Only open the door that you think I will like." So it sounds like there were other victims in other rooms, and they just open. It was like some kind of sick. What's behind door number 2? Unbelievable. In 1998, Robert A. Murray, my boss at Bank of Boston, said there were psychopaths in the CIA and FBI playing a game. He said Donald Trump was involved and was in this pedo ring. He mentioned Justice Clarence Thomas. Okay, so Sasha Riley was the other victim. He was raped by Donald Trump as a boy, he claims. Let's keep reading here. He mentioned Justice Clarence Thomas, who I didn't know. And remember, Sasha Riley mentioned Clarence Thomas as well. He also told me I was sold to the CIA by the man who pretended to be my father, the man that raped me repeatedly and trafficked me. Wow. Now, she mentions Nancy Mason here too. Let's read that part. In 2008, my boss said to me, "The FBI is on the phone. Did you see James Bulger kidnap a child?" I said I did. That night I was raped by Ron DeSantis. Remember I told you there's no possible way people like this, like governors of Florida, had no idea what Trump and Epstein were up to? Of course they knew. Now, Ron DeSantis was not the governor at that time. But let's keep reading here. She says, "I woke up naked on my floor, tied up and beaten, while James Bulger stood there with a gun. Then Ron DeSantis came in and raped me. He said, by the time I remember him assaulting me, I'll be locked up as a psychopath." Then a woman came in and faked sex with me, and that woman is Nancy Mace. James Bulger said he was going to put it on you, corn. I couldn't remember this. This was my punishment for telling. So I'm not going to read the rest of this, but I will, maybe I'll put a link to this actual link here. This is unbelievable, you guys. Unbelievable. So for people to say Trump is not in the Epstein files is a complete lie. And all we have to really go on is the witness testimonies, right? That's all we really have to go on. Which leads us to talk about the 302 files. The 302 files, they're called, are essentially the victims' testimonies in which they name specific people. Now, most of those 302 files are redacted. They're called 302 forms, more specifically. Let's pull that up here. 302s, FBI Form 302s. Many of these have incomplete pages redacted of the actual testimony that probably include all the people that Donald Trump wants to protect. The victims are very upset about this. Even given the most recent release of what we're told are the rest of the files, the victims have literally pulled up these pages and have them printed out showing how entire page was redacted, where all the names of Trump's friends have been redacted. Wow. Now, let me check in with you guys. The lies continue. Remember, Trump said he stopped speaking to Epstein long before he was indicted in 2004. Yet, here we have another Epstein files. Oh, wait, let's show this here. So Trump says he had a falling out and he basically divorced Epstein, right? And this all was supposed to have gone down in 2004 is when he says he had this last contact with Epstein. Yet, here is a Christmas reminder or an invitation for 2012. That's almost an entire decade after Trump said he quit talking to Epstein. What does Jeffrey Epstein think of going to Mar-a-Lago after Christmas instead of his island? Calendar reminder. Now, this doesn't prove anything, but why would this be in his calendar almost 10 years after Trump said they weren't speaking? Wow. Now, these files are absolutely rigged. When you type in Epstein and Donald Trump, or Epstein and any variation of Trump's name, or if you type in Epstein Melania, you get 0 results. As if Epstein never, ever, ever, ever mentioned Melania. He mentioned everybody else, but he never mentioned or talked about Melania at all. Obviously, it's been scrubbed. And in fact, the dead giveaway that the files have been scrubbed is that out of the hundreds of thousands of emails, if not a million emails, going back to the late 90s, there are 0 emails between Trump and Epstein. 0. And we were told, and we were actually witness to, that they were best friends for at least a decade. You mean to tell me they never, ever, ever emailed each other, not one time? And I'm not talking about them doing anything wrong. They could have just been talking about the weather that day, or an incoming hurricane, or, hey, when's the next time we're going to get together at Mar-a-Lago? Nothing. 0. There should be hundreds of emails between these two people, or Trump's assistant and Epstein, but there are 0. But here's the funny thing. Guess what I found? Trump was so focused on rigging his own results that he forgot about his children. Check this out. Oh, wait a minute. Let's look at this. Response to Mar-a-Lago after Christmas. Here's a response to Jeffrey Epstein. This is just to confirm, to finish the thought. Woody Allen, have a great weekend. Give him a call or something. Okay, let's pop on here. So, Trump forgot about his children. Andrew Farkas sent Epstein an email, and he said, "Yes, I have the kids this weekend. Just finished bar mitzvah training with George. Now taking both kids to Westchester for a quick lunch with friends. Then return to New York City. Tonight, going to UFC cage fights with Don Trump." This was in 2016. "Going to UFC cage fight with Donald Trump Jr. and his wife Vanessa. Your pal, Steve Stout, and his wife Lori. Marty Edelman and girlfriend Norma Kamali, and my date, who is my back surgeon. Tomorrow I have Anderson's 4th birthday party, but I have some time tomorrow afternoon." Now, what is going on with this email? Well, this guy's hanging out with Donald Trump Jr. and Epstein's pal, Steve Stout. So I looked up Steve Stout, and he is in the flight logs. This one was, let's see if it tells us the year, 2007. So from 2007 to 2016, this was Jeffrey's pal, Steve Stout. So Trump's family was still in Epstein's circles, hanging out with Epstein's pal in taking him to UFC fights in 2016. Wow. Now, I did find a few Trump zingers based on my research over the last 24 hours since I saw you guys last. Here's some Skype messages of somebody telling Epstein that Trump was coming to London in June of 2019. Now, I confirmed that this trip actually happened. It says, "Trump coming to London will be crazy." Now, why would Epstein be interested in that in 2016? Person says, "The girls are free around 6 p.m. Wow. Weird, right? Now, so where's this huge list of billionaires and millionaires in the files? Well, the core evidence is, again, what are called these 302 forms. They're like intake forms that document the exact claims of the victims, who they remember, the names and everything, and they've largely been redacted out of the files. Oh, whoops, I forgot to show you who Steve Stout is. Here he is. This is the guy that went to the UFC fight, and this is Jeffrey's pal, Steve Stout, American record executive who concurrently was executive vice president of Interscope Geffen A&M Records. So here he is. Unbelievable. He worked with Mary J. Blige. So this is a twisted web, isn't it? Let me check in with you guys. I want to get your thoughts on what this internet cable thing was and how that fits into all this, or how you think it might fit into all this. Now, I think what we're going to need to wait for is the searchable files. So when the first batch released, some very smart internet people took the files and made it so that you can search them with Boolean searches, they're called, where you can search multiple words at a time to see if they all appear in the same place in a document. And I don't know what kind of progress that they're at now with doing that for the remainder of the files, the 3 million files. I'm sure it'll probably take some time, but at a certain point, we'll be able to just go and type in Trump Epstein, and it should show every single time it's mentioned, because the DOJ website is lame. It's very, very, very basic search abilities, and oftentimes it comes up with no results. I've done the same search twice, and it's come up different 2 times. So there's some funny business going on. Okay. So, so what do you think was going on with the internet thing for young teens? We should probably look that up. Let's look up what that internet is. This is crazy. Let's do a little live research on this. What was it called? Little Bits. They're called engineering kits. Little Bits. Internet. Should call it internet. Cloudbit starter kit. So remember, Epstein helped finance this. Little Bits. So there it is. Smart home kit. What is? Let's put in this. Let's put in what is. Little Bits are color-coded magnetic electronic building blocks that snap together to create circuits and interactive projects without soldering or wiring. To build inventions. The heck? What are these people up to? This is insane. Modular electronics. Whoa. 2008. This is unbelievable. Yep, here it is. Girls playing with little bits. Okay, in July 2014, Little Bits introduced CloudBit, a Wi-Fi enabled module that lets builders add internet connectivity to their design. So that's what they're talking about. So they were using this to screen preteen girls. They were probably spying on them. Unbelievable. Okay. Let's see what it says here. Teens. Let's see if it mentions teens in here. Nope, just the girl in the picture. So, any internet people out there who know what this is about or what it could be about, you know, I'm starting to wonder, Rebecca. He looks like Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill. And literally, people were pining for his attention, his money. They were coming to him. These were very, very smart people asking Epstein about his advice on their theses and things like this. And it makes you wonder, did he know something that none of them knew? And he was like basically, you know, divvying out information to those who he chose to. We need to stop eating up the bait. What we need to stop doing is ignoring this and ignoring the victims. There are survivors. We have probably a couple dozen survivors right here on the channel that have gone through similar things. And we think that these rich billionaires aren't doing this to these people. This is not bait. This is real. What they're doing now is they're all infighting to see who's going to finally spill the beans. And this is why we need to stay on this, because at a certain point, these people are going to get backed into a corner and they're either going to say they're going to go public and out the whole thing. But if we just give up, then they're all going to get away with it. So we're going to keep an eye on Nancy Mace. Obviously, she's been named in the files. And it's now mainstream news. Let's go here. I just saw the headline. Look there, 4 hours ago. She's gotten erratic over the past year. They're already trying to discredit her. Here's the Times now. Newly released Epstein files contain a victim's email accusing Mace of faking a sexual act during a 2008 assault tied to her reporting James Whitey Bulger child kidnapping. So we already read that. Wow. Seems like Little Bits is a way to communicate on encrypted channels. Well, there you go. But how does that fit into these these main lines, they were calling them, of internet? That's the question. That's the missing link here. Columbus 2B and USV1 circuit. So these are like internet cables or something. And Epstein's custom microwave communications setup. Huh. Well, if you are an IT person and you can make sense of what the person was saying in that email, please put it in the comments section below so we can make sense of this. I don't understand internet and none of it makes any sense to me. Underground copper trunks for high amounts of data. Thank you. Yes, evil is real and we are witnessing it. The thing is okay, look at it this way. As I explained to you, the DOJ website is they made it intentionally difficult to search. You literally have to go page by page, document by document. Okay, so if this was all fake, why would they do that, right? Wouldn't they just make it so you could search it? In other words, they're abiding by what the law says, but then they're making it very, very difficult to find the connections. So if it was fake, they would have just given us all this and let us pore over it, right? But no. Little Bits went out of business, I believe. Their products were too expensive for rich kids only. Wow. Melania's hidden secret, similar to Victoria's Secret. How do we know the docs are real? Well, unless you've actually sat down and done what I've done over the last 72 hours, you will see the plethora of information. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos. There was actual abuse happening in the videos. None of this is fake. There's literally abuse on the videos. And what they do is they redact it with a moving box. So you can actually see the feet and things like this. None of this is fake. It's real stuff. So what is that? I mean, we either believe this all happened or we didn't. If you don't believe it, then you become part of the problem, because then nothing changes. Then they can just keep doing what they're doing and life goes on. And then one day your daughter gets picked up. So, or your friend's daughter or your family, this happens to. And then who are you going to have to blame? Oh, I didn't think it was real. This is serious, you guys. It's redacted with a moving box. You can see the entire room. You can see things happening And I don't want to get too graphic, but there was stuff in there that I saw that was just completely disgusting. There was a little girl jumping up and down in Epstein's lap and straddling his leg. He had it all on videotape while there were other people in the room. So if you don't want to believe this stuff, then you become part of the problem. You're just going to allow this to happen, and then it's going to be your child one day, or somebody you know. So, okay, I'm back in the chat. And again, there are at least a couple dozen victims on this channel, not to Epstein per se, but of other people that have shared similar stories. Again, why would you, if the information was manipulated, why even allow that information to come out? The argument makes absolutely no sense. If the information was manipulated, then there would be zero things with any credibility to it, right? So that argument doesn't really hold any water. Okay. I don't know why someone, the people that are saying they're fake, it's because they haven't even looked at the files. It's very difficult to do. You have to concentrate and focus. You have to figure out how you're going to search the information. And the people saying it's fake is because they haven't even looked. Because if you actually look, it is hundreds of thousands of emails. You can't make up that much content. It's impossible. And there is continuity. It's not just random content. There's continuity connecting things to other things. You can confirm the content with real events in life, like we just did. I think it's a cop-out to say it's all fake. That's just for people of low intelligence who don't want to face this or deal with it, or who think it's a Democrat hoax. There are a bunch of Democrats listed in the files. If it was a Democrat hoax, why would they out themselves? It makes absolutely no sense at all. So, again, if it was 100% made up, I just explained to you how that was impossible, because the whole thing has continuity to it. And unless you've actually looked at the files, you would not know that. You would that'd just be the easy answer. It's all made up, okay? Okay. Yeah, the people saying that it's fake won't even look at it. They won't even look. They don't want to know. Reminds me when I was in a cult, the cult of the Jehovah's Witnesses. You know what they tell you? If you look at anything else, you're an apostate. You're not allowed to go to attend another church and hear what they have to say. You're not allowed to look in other people's Bibles. You're not allowed to speak or talk about anything other than what the elders in the congregation talk about and give talks on. That's what they would, and this is how they would keep people in the cult. Because once you start looking at other things, you start understanding the truth. And this Trump cult is the same thing. They don't even want to look. Because in their mind, they already believe Trump's words, that it's a Democrat hoax. Plenty of Democrats listed in the Epstein files. Plenty. It's probably about half and half. What they're banking on is that you believe the lie, that it's all hoax, and then everyone just moves on. Amen. Thanks, Crystal. Yeah, warp speed. That's what helped a lot of people wake up to Trump. He literally commissioned billions of dollars to make the thing that literally is killing a bunch of people. And a lot of people didn't make the connection. They're like, because look, RFK Jr. came out and he's like, he started criticizing, the vaccine. But then no one made the connection that Trump was the one that made it. Now, he didn't technically make it in the lab. He wasn't the one in the lab making it, but he commissioned it and created it. So you can't detach those two things. And a lot of you woke up from that. You're like, whoa, okay. So if he did that, then that's not good. Ooh, look up Wayfair. Okay, let's just take a look here. Okay. Wayfair. Got about 300 results. Whoa, what's this? What? Wayfair.com. Whoa. Well, is this all redacted? I don't see anything. It's just like a Wayfair.com link. Creepy. This was the first result. There's just a bunch of blank pages. Wayfair.com. These people doing? Let's go to the bottom of this. It's just a huge long link. Bunch of gobbledygook. Okay. Let's go to some of these other links here. Oh, come on. Site's acting weird again. Oh, here we go. From Wayfair. Okay, this is just some. See the nonsense here? There's supposed to be pictures. And the DOJ is not putting the pictures. Now, this is just an advertisement. Nothing nefarious here. But we need to see the full context of these emails. They have not done that. From Wayfair. These are just advertisements, specials. Let's see what this one says. Same thing. Boy. Lots of files. See how tedious this is? I'm only on 11 through 20 of 391. So this is what the real researchers are doing. We're going through the files. We're not taking anyone's word for anything. Now, there's two kinds of researchers out there. There are researchers that will cherry pick other people's research, right? And just put together a show. Probably most of your big channels and things are probably doing that because they just don't want to take the time. And then there's researchers like us. I'm literally going through these files. And I'm not trying to take away from the larger channels that summarize other people's work because that's necessary and that does get the word out. But when you come to this channel, we are trying to get through the nuts and bolts of this. But the way that they have it so that you can search it is messed up. It's way too difficult to do. And so literally it's tedious work. Like I have to take breaks. Sometimes I forget to eat because this stuff, this is very serious, you guys. This is very serious. This is way bigger than the WikiLeaks, okay? Way bigger. Because this is the entire foundation of how the world works. The United States government, a current sitting president. So, and they were kind of rushed to get this out there to abide by the law. So what that means is there could be mistakes in here where they forgot to scrub something. It's a little bit different than the WikiLeaks. Yeah, these are all just advertisements mostly. So I don't know what's up with that. Anyway, you guys, I'm going to pop off here. I'll leave links to all this stuff. This is insane. Have a great rest of your day, you guys. Much love.